Foul. A chance for three for Aaliyah Boston.
The Indiana Fever's win over the Phoenix Mercury wasn't just another victory. It was a statement, a moment of redemption, and pure basketball karma playing out in front of a charged Gainbridge Fieldhouse crowd. The Fever stacked a day, pulled together a gritty, unified performance, and did it against a familiar face that fans had been waiting months to confront DeWanna Bonner, whose return to Indianapolis after quitting midseason was anything but triumphant. The second she stepped onto the floor, boos rained down relentlessly, fans chanting quitter and gearing every time she touched the ball, creating an atmosphere unlike any other regular season game. This was personal, and Bonner felt the full weight of the city she abandoned. She finished with just 4 points on 1 of 4 shooting, a single rebound, and looked like a shell of the player who thought leaving Indiana would lead her to greener pastures. To make matters worse, her fiancé, Alyssa Thomas, fueled the fire by taunting fans, mocking their loyalty, and telling them Bonner had joined a real team. All while the scoreboard turned into a humiliation reel. The Fever weren't just surviving without Caitlin Clark. Sidelined by a groin injury, they were thriving. Clark herself, suited on the bench, couldn't hide her delight, leaping to celebrate every defensive stand against her former teammate. From Lexi Hull and Natasha Howard's suffocating blocks to Bonner's shot clock violation that sent the arena into a frenzy. If anyone doubted how the Fever locker room truly felt about Bonner's exit, Clark's animated reactions said it all. And then came the ultimate sting. Aari McDonald, brought in after Bonner's departure, created cap space, exploded for a career-high 27 points, went 10 for 10 from the free throw line, and displayed a fire and urgency Bonner never showed in a Fever uniform. Alongside her, Khloe Bibby, on just a 7-day contract, chipped in 10 points, a three-pointer in transition, and gritty defensive plays, proving she belonged on this stage. Sophie Cunningham poured in 12 points, including a momentum-swinging 4-point play, while Damiris Dantas embarrassed Thomas with a dream-shake bucket that symbolized the night's theme. Indiana's so-called cast-offs were thriving while Phoenix's supposed stars wilted. The irony was unmistakable. Bonner's absence had become Indiana's strength. Her departure, the very move that allowed McDonald and Bibby to join a team that embraced fight and chemistry. And at the center of it all stood Aaliyah Boston, anchoring the Fever with 22 points and 12 rebounds, before taking over in the fourth quarter to crush any lingering Mercury hope, with 5 players in double figures, nearly 7, and contributions from every corner of the roster. The Fever proved they are not just a one-star show built around Caitlin Clark, but a resilient, dangerous squad that can dismantle contenders, even when adversity strikes. As the final buzzer sounded on a 107-101 victory, the boos that had haunted Bonner all night gave way to thunderous celebration. Not just because Indiana beat a playoff-level opponent, but because they did it while exorcising the ghost of betrayal. Instant karma had been delivered in full, and the Fever walked off the court not only with a win but with a powerful reminder to the league. Quitting on Indiana doesn't end well, because this is a team building something real, together, and those who doubted them just got fooled.
Firing away, and hitting. I mean, the uniform is always...
The night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse was nothing short of electric. The kind of night that Indiana Fever fans had been waiting for all season. And in many ways, for years, a night where basketball wasn't just a sport but a story of loyalty, betrayal, redemption, and karma all colliding in real time. And at the center of it all stood Aaliyah Boston, the young cornerstone of the franchise who decided she wasn't going to let anyone leave the arena, questioning whether the Fever could win without Caitlin Clark. And she did so by delivering a performance so commanding and so emotionally charged that it will be remembered as one of the defining moments of her career to date. A 17-point explosion in the fourth quarter that turned a competitive game into a statement victory, a personal DS-0 run that silenced the Mercury, crushed whatever comeback hopes they had, and transformed a tense crowd into a deafening sea of celebration. Because for Fever fans this was more than basketball, it was personal vindication. The cathartic release of anger and disappointment that had been simmering ever since DeWanna Bonner quit on their team mid-season to chase what she thought were greener pastures, only to return and be booed mercilessly, embarrassed statistically, and humiliated emotionally. While the team she abandoned blossomed in her absence, and that night, behind Boston's dominance, the Fever proved to the league and to themselves that they are no longer a team defined by one superstar or by the drama of who stays and who leaves, but by a collective belief in resilience, unity, and the kind of championship mentality that makes opponents crack when the pressure mounts. The game itself unfolded like a dramatic play, each quarter building tension until Boston took control in the final act. But the subplot involving Bonner's return was woven through every possession, every boo, every jeer, and every missed shot, because the fans had been waiting for this confrontation since she decided Indianapolis wasn't good enough for her. And as soon as she checked into the game, the boos cascaded down, relentless and sharp, echoing off the walls of Gainbridge like a reminder that actions have consequences. And the more she struggled, the louder the crowd grew, until her stat line, 4 points on 1 of 4 shooting, 1 rebound in 21 minutes, looked less like a box score and more like a public verdict on her decision. And while the fans unleashed their fury, Alyssa Thomas, her fiancé, tried desperately to counter, taunting fans, mocking them, insisting Bonner had joined a real team. Oblivious to how badly things were unraveling on the floor, and instead of intimidating the crowd, she only poured gasoline on the fire, as every fever stop, every block, and every Boston basket became another dagger into the Mercury's hopes and another layer of satisfaction for the fans, who had been told their team wasn't good enough. Even Caitlin Clark, sidelined with a groin injury, couldn't help but join the fun, her competitive spirit shining through as she leaped off the bench, clapping, cheering, and celebrating every defensive stand against Bonner, especially when Lexi Hull and Natasha Howard smothered her into a shot clock violation that made the arena erupt. Clark's reactions were a window into how the Fever locker room truly felt, revealing that this wasn't just about fans booing a former player. It was about a team standing united in the face of someone who quit on them, and finding joy in proving her wrong. Yet, what made the night even sweeter for Indiana was that the players who had replaced Bonner, Aari, McDonald, and Khloe, Bibby, were thriving in roles they might never have had if she had stayed, turning her departure into a blessing in disguise. McDonald, who wasn't even on the roster to start the season, seized her moment with a career-high 27 points, going a flawless 10-for-10 from the free throw line, slicing through Phoenix's defense with her speed, distributing the ball with confidence, and displaying the kind of grit and urgency that reminded everyone why she had been a star at Arizona. And most importantly, she gave the Fever a second scoring punch they desperately needed without Clark on the floor. Beside her, Bibby, signed to a simple 7-day contract, poured in 10 points, hit big shots in transition, and made hustle plays on defense that energized the team. And together, they embodied the irony of the night. The cap space created by exit had been used to sign players who wanted to fight for Indiana. Players who weren't looking for an easier path elsewhere, and in the most poetic way possible. Those players outperformed Bonner in the very game she returned to Indianapolis. The contributions didn't stop there, as Sophie Cunningham added 12 points, including a crowd-lifting 4-point play, and Damiris Dantas made Alyssa Thomas look foolish with a crafty dream shake move. Each play another brick in the wall Indiana was building around Phoenix's comeback hopes. But when the fourth quarter arrived, it was Boston's time. And what she unleashed was nothing short of breathtaking power moves in the paint, silky footwork, and a relentless will to dominate that left Phoenix defenders helpless, frustrated, and demoralized. Every basket she scored was a thunderclap, every trip to the line a punishment for the Mercury's inability to contain her. As she went 10 for -13 from the stripe and made Phoenix pay for every foul, every lapse in discipline, every ounce of weakness, she pulled down rebounds in traffic, finished through contact, and played with the confidence of someone who knew she was the best player on the floor. The kind of takeover performance that transforms a good team into a dangerous one. With each basket, the Gainbridge crowd grew louder, standing on its feet, roaring like it was the playoffs, sensing that they were witnessing the arrival of Boston not just as a star but as a franchise cornerstone capable of carrying them in the biggest moments. And as her 17 fourth-quarter points stacked up, the Mercury's body language sagged lower and lower, the inevitability of defeat etched across their faces. By the time the final buzzer sounded on a 107-101 victory, Boston had not only secured her fourth consecutive double-double, a career-best streak, but she had cemented her place in Fever history as the player who proved they could win big games without Caitlin Clark. And in doing so, she elevated the entire organization's belief that they could contend for something much greater. Yet, as sweet as the win was, the drama didn't end with the game. The post-game press conferences revealed just how differently the two organizations approached adversity. Kalia Copper, visibly upset, lashed out at Fever fans, calling their boos very distasteful and insisting Bonner was a legend who deserved respect. Her comments tone deaf to the reality that Bonner had quit mid-season and left a fanbase that had embraced her high and dry, and instead of acknowledging the competitive nature of sports or the emotional stakes for fans, Copper painted them as villains, a move that only highlighted the disconnect between Phoenix's locker room and reality. On the other hand, Indiana's responses were pure class. Head coach Stephanie White handled the situation with grace, deflecting attention away from the boos and onto the team's performance, acknowledging the awkwardness of facing a former player but refusing to indulge in drama. While Boston herself delivered the perfect response, cutting off the conversation with calm maturity, saying, "Honestly, that got nothing to do with me," a statement that crystallized the difference between the Fever's focus and the Mercury's excuses. Indiana's leaders stayed locked in on what mattered: the win, the growth, and the path forward, while Phoenix's leaders whined about fans. A contrast that underscored which organization was truly building something sustainable. The numbers backed it up too. This was Indiana's third straight win, their 15th of the season against 12 losses, moving them into 6th place in the standings and putting them above 500 this late in the year for the first time since 2015. A statistic that carried weight because it proved the Fever were no longer just Caitlin Clark's supporting cast but a legitimate playoff contender with depth, chemistry, and a rising star in Boston who was ready to lead. For Fever fans, the win was about more than standings or playoff positioning. It was about closure, about watching Bonner return, expecting perhaps polite indifference, and instead finding herself booed, mocked, and ultimately irrelevant on the court, while her replacements shined and her fiancé's taunts backfired. A living, breathing example of instant karma delivered in real time. Sports, after all, have a way of delivering justice. And on this night, the universe aligned perfectly, sending a message not just to Bonner, but to the entire league. Don't underestimate the Fever. Don't dismiss their culture, and don't think loyalty doesn't matter, because this team is writing a new story. One built on resilience, class, and a hunger for something bigger than individual accolades. As fans left the arena, still buzzing from the noise, still talking about Boston's takeover, McDonald's emergence, Bibby's hustle, and the satisfaction of seeing Bonner humbled, there was a sense that something special was taking root in Indiana, the kind of foundation that can grow into a championship identity, and whether Caitlin Clark is on the floor or not, the Fever proved they are more than ready to rise. In the end, Bonner thought she had walked away to something better, but what she really did was gift Indiana the space to build something greater. And when she returned, she learned the hard way that basketball karma never forgets. Sometimes it just waits for the perfect moment to strike.